GDI Hub staff. Take it away, Amelia.
If the sun should tumble from the sky, if the sea should suddenly run dry, if you love me, really love me, let it happen, I won't care. Con l'amour inondame matin, ton amour respiera sur tes mains, et remonte les problèmes, mon amour, puisque tu m'aimes. J'irai jusqu'au bout du monde, je me ferai teindre blanc si tu me demandais. J'irai décrocher la lune, j'irai voler la fortune si tu me demandais. Je réunirai ma patrie, je réunirai mes amis si tu me demandais. En milliard et moi, je ferai n'importe quoi si tu me le demandais. Si un jour la vie t'arrache à moi, si tu meurs, que tu sois loin de moi, remonte si tu m'aimes, car moi je mourrai aussi. Nous aurons pour l'éternité dans le au-dessus des mondes cités, dans le ciel plus de problèmes, mon amour, crois-tu qu'on
Well, how do you follow that? Thank you so much, Amelia Underwood King, for that performance. A member of GDI Hub staff, no less, demonstrating the breadth of our talents there. Quite magnificent there. I am Ian McKinnon, and I am the CEO of the Global Disability Innovation Hub, more commonly referred to as GDI Hub. And it's my privilege to be here, actually, and to welcome you here to this reception, which is titled Beyond Sport, Disability Innovation and the Power of the Paralympic Legacy, and what is, of course, day one of the Paralympic Games here in Paris. I hope you managed to see the opening ceremony last night. The GDI Hub team We're again very privileged to be here in Paris this week and found ourselves in one of the many fan zones around the city, soaking up the atmosphere and watching it on the big screen. It was fantastic. Before we begin this evening, I do have a few housekeeping points for you all. So the restrooms, the toilets, you will have passed as you entered the residence. From here, you go back towards the main entrance, through the cloakroom, and they are on the corridor on the right-hand side. There's a male and female toilet, and at the end of the corridor, there is a unisex accessible WC. If anyone has any issues or any problems with the WC, come and see one of us or one of the residents' team. In the event of an emergency this evening, guests will be evacuated to the garden, which is directly behind us here, and magnificent it is. So yeah, if any emergencies, that's where we'll be going. And also just to say finally that the residents' team, who are amazing, by the way, are first aid trained and are able to support if anyone has any issues throughout the night. So do just let one of us or one of the residents' team know. And now it is my, again, very great pleasure to introduce to you His Majesty's Ambassador, Dame Menna Rawlings.
Bonjour à tous et à tous. C'est un grand plaisir pour moi de vous accueillir ici ce soir pour cet bel événement avec Global, sorry, I'm having a long day, Global Disability Innovation Hub. I got there in the end. It's a total pleasure to be here. This morning I was with our Prime Minister when we went to Saint-Germain-en-Laye to see Paralympics GB athletes getting ready for the Paralympics. Last night I was with him at the opening ceremony, and as an ambassador, these are real treasures in my career and my life, to be able to go with the British Prime Minister, the first ever visit by a British Prime Minister to an away Paralympics, and to be there with him to see the inspiring opening ceremony, as Ian has said. But today, tonight, he's gone, he's left, and it's great to be here with you. It all went well. Delighted to be here tonight, and in a moment I'm going to introduce you to our Sports Minister, Steph Peacock, who's back for her second visit since being selected. Congratulations into a new role as Sports Minister under Keir Starmer's government. So I'll be very brief because I am the warm-up act, although I have to say I think Amelia's warm-up act was much better than mine. We have a sign, it's a piece of art actually, as you come into this room, some of you might have seen it, it says, "More Passion." It's actually a piece of art by Tracy Emin. You can go and look at it on the way out. And I think, with Amelia's performance tonight, but with the Paralympics more generally, we're all experiencing more passion, and it's a wonderful feeling. I think everyone knows the history of the UK's involvement in the Paralympics, dating right back to Stoke Mandeville in 1948, and then the fantastic boost that London 2012 gave to the Paralympics, and how that legacy has been taken forward, including through the creation of organisations like the Global Disability Innovation Hub. And we'll be hearing a lot more about that tonight, but I'm personally very proud of this legacy, which I think means a lot to all of us. I think there's one thing I just wanted to say, which is, I think one sort of idea from the Paralympics is to inspire us all to be better when it comes to accessibility and access for disabled people, not just to sport, but also to historic buildings like this. And with the help of our fantastic residence team and our estates team, we've worked really hard to make sure that this residence is accessible for all of you. You might have seen our new ramps at the front and the back. How could you miss them? With the red carpets and the flowers. Ian mentioned the accessible toilets, those have just been upgraded, and we've got a guest bedroom upstairs that we've long called accessible, but hasn't really been accessible, and that's just been completely modernised and updated, so it really is suitable for people who use a wheelchair in future to come and actually stay here in comfort and to experience the best of the residents as more able-bodied people are also able to do. So I think that just shows the power of the Paralympics to keep, uplifting and showing us that we all need to be better on these issues. And I'm delighted that we've, taken that lesson and you're able to enjoy the results of that tonight. But if you do see things that you think we can do better, we can improve on, please tell us, please let us know, because we are in the business of continual improvement, which I think is what it's all about. Anyway, I'm standing between you and our Sports Minister, Stephanie Peacock MP. So a very brief word on Stephanie. So before entering Parliament in 2017, Stephanie was a qualified teacher and taught history and worked in adult education in Yorkshire. She's a keen runner and completed the London Marathon in 2019. You can tell us your time later, Minister. But I'm sure this has helped her with the resilience and the determination that she's going to need for this job, and has already shown, I think, in her previous visit to Paris for the wonderful Olympics. So, Minister, thank you so much for coming back again, as I say, for the second time so early in your tenure, and we look forward to enjoying the Paralympics with you. Over to you, Minister. Thank you very much.
Lovely introduction. I perhaps won't be sharing my time with you though this evening. I am, however, delighted to be here to celebrate the Paralympics and the power of sport to inspire innovation and global collaboration. Thank you also to Ian and your colleagues at the Global Disability Innovation Hub for bringing this wonderful event together, and of course to everyone here at the Embassy and the residents, all the team for working so hard. I'm incredibly proud that the GDI Hub can trace its roots back to another Paralympics, London 2012. Those Paralympic Games showcased disability sport in a way I don't think many of us had seen before. They also demonstrated what can be achieved when inclusion and innovative thinking are factored into plans from the earliest stages. That was the spark that paved the way for the GDI Hub to be created, and I pay tribute to its incredible success over the last few years. The Hub has brought together the best minds from across the world to push forward creative thinking for the benefit of disabled people and a fairer society. You have also created a global network to collaborate and break new boundaries, so it seems fitting we celebrate that success as another Paralympics gets underway. These Games, in the iconic setting of Paris, will again provide the opportunity to break new ground in sporting success and innovation. I am sure that the Paris Paralympics and all the incredible athletes here over the next 2 weeks will again be a great inspiration for us to cooperate, to be open to new ideas and seek opportunities to create a more inclusive and equal world. I very much look forward to hearing more about the excellent work of the GDI Hub this evening and the insights from the great panel that we have with us. So I hope you enjoy the discussion, the evening and of course the Games.
Thank you so much, Ambassador and Minister. I never thought in my life I'd say that sentence. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. Okay, before we get on to the main event of the evening with our incredible panel that we have lined up, and I'll do a very light touch hosting to take us through the hearing from the panel. I do just want to follow on from what both the Ambassador and the Minister have said and just touch a little bit on what the Paralympics means to us, GDI Hub, and also reflect a little bit, as was said, to London in 2012. So, for those of you that perhaps don't know GDI Hub quite so well, the Paralympics is a huge part of our history. And arguably, without 2012, we wouldn't exist. Which means that we arguably wouldn't be here tonight. And if we weren't here tonight, then again, arguably, you might not be here tonight. So that, I think, is the power of sport. So whether you like sport or whether you don't like sport, whether you watch sport or whether you don't watch sport, whether you could name a Paralympian from your home nation or not, you are here because of it. And that is power, and that is beyond sport. So the work that we do now owes itself a lot to 2012. And our work with our funders and our partners, for example, and I can't name everyone, but for example, the UK Government's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO, who fund our flagship 80 2030 research programme that has an emphasis on access to AT in low and middle income countries. For example, our work with the World Health Organisation, with whom we are the world's first collaborating centre on AT at University College London, our lead academic partner. Or our work with the Asian Development Bank, who we've been working with across both public and private finance projects to help strengthen their disability inclusion. Or our work with the Climate Investment Fund, CBM, and other partners on the intersection of climate resilience and inclusive design of the built environment. Or maybe even teaching on our master's course that we teach, Disability, Design and Innovation at UCL, with our partners, Loughborough University London and the London College of Fashion, and many, many others, partners, funders, colleagues that we work with, far too many to mention here and now. But all of this work that we have been doing these past 8 years since we launched GDI Hub on the eve of the Paralympic Games in Rio in 2016 is a direct and a permanent legacy from 2012. And how did 2012 shape our approach and shape our confidence to do this, and also shape the values that we hold in the work that we do? Well, it did teach us an awful lot, but if we were forced to condense that into 3 takeaways, I think 3 is a magic number. Remembering 3 things, I think, is just about right. The first would be take an open and an innovative approach, fundamental. The second would be to bring diverse partners to the table, always. And the third would be to enable diverse leadership to take centre stage. And so here we are, 12 years on, in Paris, on day 1 of what I hope will take the mantle of the most successful Paralympic Games ever. Because that demonstrates progress and it demonstrates impact. And that is 2 words that epitomise what we try and do at GDI Hub. We try and make progress, and we try to have impact. And tonight, we're going to hear from an amazing panel, an incredible panel of speakers. We're delighted they could join us tonight. We're going to hear about their own work, we're going to hear about their own relationship to the Paralympic Games, and we're going to hear how they harness the power beyond sport to make their own progress and have their own impacts. So let's get started, shall we? So if I could get each of you just to introduce yourselves, just take a minute and just introduce yourselves, if that's okay.
How much detail should I give you?
As much as you would like.
Okay.
Yes.
A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is John McFall. I'm currently in quite a unique role working with the European Space Agency. But I'll just give you a little bit of context, first of all, briefly. So I had a traumatic amputation of my right leg in the year 2000 at the age of 19. Following that, sport was a real vehicle for rehabilitation for me. Sport had been a huge part of my life when I had legs, and to re-establish that sense of self-identity and confidence, I got back into sport because it was so important to me. And as a result of that, I ended up competing in the Paralympics, and I competed in Beijing in 2008 at the Paralympic Games as a sprinter. Then thinking I should probably get a real job, I actually thought that what would I like to have done when I was 15 to 16 had I not wanted to join the army, which I wanted to do at the time, but I couldn't as an amputee. And so I went, and at the age of 28 I went back to university and I studied medicine. And I trained in Cardiff, and when I graduated I then trained as a trauma and orthopaedic surgeon, and I've been working up until June 2023 as a trauma and orthopaedic surgeon in Hampshire. And then all of a sudden this opportunity with the European Space Agency came my way, And at the moment, well, we are near the conclusion, or pretty much concluded, a study. So European Space Agency, we're recruiting for a new class of astronauts in 2021, 2022. And uniquely within this recruitment, they were also looking for someone with a physical disability to do a feasibility study to see if it would be possible for someone with a physical disability to be a fully integrated member of an astronaut crew to live and work on the International Space Station for a 6-month mission. I went through the selection process. I popped out the other end successful, and here I am. And I started working with the European Space Agency in June last year as the subject matter expert for the flight feasibility study, and that's where we are now.
Perfect. Thank you so much, John. That's great.
When you were talking about Paralympians getting real jobs, I saw incredible Irish Paralympian Jason was like, excuse me. Just to build you up on that. Bonjour tout le monde, je parle un peu de français, mais je suis très nerveuse. I'm going to speak English. I'm going to speak English. I'm going to start with a visual description very briefly. My name is Sinead Burke. I'm a white cisgender woman. I use the pronouns she and her. I identify as queer and physically disabled. I have brown shoulder-length hair. I have dwarfism, and I am wearing a denim jacket and trousers from the brand Loewe, which is creative directed by Jonathan Anderson, who's a Northern Ireland designer. Loewe is owned by LVMH. Bringing the two countries together. I try my best. It's such a privilege to be here tonight. To give a very brief introduction to who I am. My name is Sinead, as I said. I'm CEO of Tilting the Lens. We are a strategic accessibility consultancy. But much like the minister, my background is in teaching. I'm a teacher by training. For me, education has always been fundamental to thinking about it being a lever for systemic change. But while being in university training to be a teacher, I set up a fashion blog. And the reality for that was because as a woman with an apparent disability, fashion, whether it be in Paris, Milan, New York or London, was never really a space for disabled people. It was an exclusionary industry that wasn't just exclusive in price point, but also in representation. So I had this grand ambition at home in Ireland at 16 that I would change the fashion industry. It was ambitious. But several decades later, I have the privilege to sit on the stage and tell you that I have been on the cover of British Vogue twice. I have been to the Met Gala, which means something to some of you. Who are like, oh my god, what was Kim Kardashian like? To others who are like, I don't know about that. I have the best wardrobe you can imagine. I have the only custom piece ever designed by MS. But that is a problem. Because in the midst of my advocacy, the pandemic happened. And even if we look to the UK, in the first phase of the pandemic, 6 out of 10 people who died of COVID-19 identified as disabled. See how uncomfortable we all got there. And it was this moment in my life where I began to reflect, did the fashion system become more accessible because I was part of it? Or did it become accessible for me? And the reality is that when we think about disability inclusion and disability advancement, too often we create success stories for those who are individuals rather than thinking about system change. So for the past 4 years, Tilting the Lens has been building an all-female, majority disabled team to think about ways of working to create that systemic change. And I hope to tell you a little bit about it tonight. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone, so I'm also very happy to be here and very honored to share the stage with the guests here. So I'm Christophe Debat, I'm working in Airbus. So maybe the link is very difficult to make between Paralympics and Airbus. But the story is interesting, is that I'm an amputated since the age of 13. And for me, inclusion and the way people look at disability was not really easy to live when I was teen, because when I get out of the hospital, it was a cancer. Because of cancer, I was amputated. people look at me and were always sorry for me. And at this moment, I didn't know if I should be ashamed about my disability, if I had to hide it. And it took me several years to get out of this, but finally I discovered that finally my disability is also my strength, because it allowed me to think differently. I was different and I think differently, and today I can say that it's an addition. And I was working in Airbus, and I met several people with the same disabilities as me, and I saw that most of the people didn't completely accept the way I have accepted the way people look at disability. So I simply launched a project using technology in order to change this way of looking at disability. And I asked for help inside of us to make an aesthetic for prosthesis, something simple. And I can say that this project completely changed my life because clearly it changed the way people look at disability when I presented this prototype. But also, I discovered that the people who helped me inside Airbus, engineer with certain expertise, at the end of the project, they thank me. They say, oh wow, thank you, Christophe, to allow me to participate in this project. And at this moment, I said, wow, I asked for help and people thank me, so I'm sure there is something to do. And I start to do other small projects. I end up becoming in Airbus director of a laboratory of innovation. And thanks to this position, I leverage all the power that we have inside Airbus in order to make innovation for disability, but also environment, health, humanitarian. And I discovered that the concept is working. So what I would like to continue here is to spread this way of working, to have people in the company that are happy to contribute. We are talking about human beings that want to help other human beings. And when you are in a company, you have an organization that allows you to organize a project and make some wonderful innovation. And what is the link with the Paralympic is that by doing little project by little project, we end up making a partnership with l'Agence Nationale du Sport in France in order to make innovation to improve the performance of the French team, to gain more medals in Great Britain in several years. But the idea was that, and we ended up helping some athletes to improve their performance through the expertise that we have in the aeronautic industry. So my dream is to spread this thing, and that other companies start to do this kind of thing, but because there is plenty of benefit.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kara Yarkhan. I am a biracial South Asian woman with black hair and green eyes, and this evening I'm wearing classic pink satin, of course, and a white cape. I'm delighted to be with you here, my first time in Paris, and it is beautiful. This kind of space that we're in is where we dream to live one day. And I've always been a dreamer. And at the very young age of 6, I dreamed of working with the United Nations in some of the most dangerous and foreign places in the world. And that dream came true. I joined the United Nations right out of college 25 years ago and had the privilege of going to some of the most exquisite countries and meeting some of the most fascinating people and meeting some of the most beautiful, inspiring children. In the middle of my career, or the beginning, actually now it feels like the beginning, around the age of 30, I was diagnosed with a rare type of muscular dystrophy. And everyone said my life was over, my international career was over. And this was actually just a couple of years before the Beijing Paralympics. But I didn't believe that I needed to give up my dream. So I went to Angola, as one does, after having a devastating diagnosis, because I believed that I could go on. But that's not to say that I didn't have ableist ideas and that I wasn't afraid of what might happen and afraid of the way that people would judge me. In 2008, we think of the Paralympics, but it was also the year of the Sichuan earthquake emergency, and I was sent with UNICEF to China to support that emergency operation. It was also a time when I took on my first leg brace, my first assistive aid, and I was feeling very sorry for myself. Actually, I was really pissed off about how I ruined my fashion, thinking I could only wear tennis shoes, but as you can see, I look quite fabulous this evening. In the clinic where I was, where my braces were being fitted, I met a 4-year-old little girl who had lost both of her legs in the earthquake. And I vowed to myself that not only would I never feel sorry for myself again, because I was so privileged to have access to that AT, but that I would carry a torch for myself and my community onwards. I was very lucky to go to some of the Paralympic sport in Beijing and to games in Shanghai with my family. And I'll tell you one little story. My father, who like many parents was very protective, and we were at one of the sports and he didn't know what to say. Excuse me, please get out of the way. He was trying to be protective of me. The only thing that he knew what to say was, we have a problem. So we sat down for the sport and I gave him a hug and I said, Dad, the only day that we have a problem is when I can't make you laugh anymore. It gave me the insight from a personal experience that we have to have grace with ourselves, but also with the people around us, whether it's our friends, our family, our co-workers, or our new partners, in helping them come along in this journey, an unlearning ableism, unlearning the negative stereotypes and stigma and discrimination that our world perpetuates. And that's what's so exciting about the Paralympic Games, is it gives us that opportunity to do that in so many ways. Thank you for having me here. Oh, one more thing. I am a very new, proud member of Global Disability
Okay, thank you. I mean, that was amazing. Slightly longer intros than I was anticipating. But that was amazing, right? So what I'm going to suggest, guys, is I'll come along the line one more time. I'll pick one of the 2 questions we had planned, if that's all right, yeah? And I'll also do a visual description. So I'm a white man, I'm Scottish, as my accent might give away, wearing a dark blue suit. Okay, so I'll come along and I'll pick one. So, John, if you don't mind, I'll ask you, how do assistive technologies support diverse participation, and what is the opportunity for innovation to change lives?
Yeah, thanks, Ian. I think I'm going to come at this from a bit of a prosthetics point of view. I think my field of most expertise. I think assistive technology for amputees is great, specifically lower limb amputees. It is fantastic. So there is amazing assistive technology there, right? But it depends where you are in the world. And I think this is really important, is accessibility to assisted technology is more important than actually the existence of assisted technology itself. And and you probably automatically think that you think of developing countries where they have difficult access to healthcare and provision of prosthetics and orthotics and those sorts of things. This is true, but it's also on our doorstep as well in the UK, and we have a healthcare system in the UK that does occasionally let people down from the assistive technology points of view. So having access to the right assistive technology, I think, is important. Events like the Paralympics, the existence of that, conflict, war, the necessity for these items and delivering prosthetic and orthotic care throughout the world, whether it be disaster relief or whatever, those are actually, believe it or not, drivers of innovation themselves. And necessity is the mother of invention, but we just need to get the distribution of this technology and the access to this technology right.
Great, thank you so much, Sean. Okay, Sinead, it's potluck here. What questions do you want to ask you, right? I'm going to ask you So how is design impacted by big cultural moments like the Paralympic Games?
I mean, I think Cara made such a great point, and it also comes up when we talk about aesthetics, that some of the previous inventions around design and disability has always come from a medical model, rather than one of disability rights or disability justice. That often when design innovations are created, there is a focus and a priority on functionality rather than an aesthetics and pride. I think when we look at cultural moments, the Paralympics is a great example where conversations are instigated around adaptive design. And adaptive design is some of the language that is often given to more accessible fashion or garments. Whether we look to what Ralph Lauren is doing with the American team, whether we look to what is taking place with On in Switzerland. But I think there's a couple of questions that we need to provoke after this. So it's wonderful that there's adaptive technicalities, whether that's around fixtures, so for example, Velcro, magnets, bigger zips, different ways to get in and out of a garment, whether it's about fabric, if you're neurodivergent and autistic, seams may be very difficult for you, or whether it's about alterations and customization. But again, that notion of exceptionalism, if it only exists within the remit of the Paralympics and the Paralympic athletes, and is never to market, that is a fundamental issue and challenge. And it's an issue that is being solved for. Dr. Shani Danda is here, who's doing some amazing work with Primark. There's amazing work being done in the startup space with Victoria Jenkins and with Chimaya Dewey. But when we think about long-term strategic impact, the question that we have to ask ourselves is around where are we ambitious to see disabled people? And unfortunately, when we think about design, and even if we think about fashion design, we perceive disabled people to be consumers, not to be designers. And some of that is because of the infrastructure challenges that exist. If you are local to here in Paris, Paris is the home of couture. Couture is very expensive, but potentially the most accessible and adaptive form of fashion that exists. It is made to measure. So how do we transform and change that mindset? And while we work in fashion as just one industry that we work in at Tilting the Lens, one of the things that we know is that the conversation won't change with consultants. We say that with the deep irony of being consultants. Systemic change will happen when disabled people are fashion designers. So we've created a scholarship with Parsons School of Design in New York. And this week, 3 disabled people start the fashion program, fully funded. Education is very expensive in the United States. But their housing is also covered. There is also a fund so that if they are not able or do not want to work, they have a stipend to thrive during their education. We will do this for the next 4 years. So we will have a cohort of 12 disabled designers graduating. Our job as Tilting the Lens in the interim, and it's what we were doing here today, is meeting with designers and brands now. Because up until now the question has been, well, where are the disabled designers? Now we have a roadmap. So now my question is, how do we get them into your atelier? Because it is too late when they're qualified. So as we think about those systems change, I think the Paralympics is great for thinking about adaptive design. But if we don't have a bigger ambition for disabled people, even in places like France, our conversation will always be limited to how do we meet the 6% quota on the employment of people with disabilities? And my question for France is, what's the ambition after you meet it? When do you get to 10 or 15 or 20? And the last point I would just say, in being mindful of the Paralympics, is that I'm also mindful that so much of the focus of our conversation on the stage today is around physical disabilities, which is very relevant for this week and the Games. But I want to be mindful that 70% of disabled people have non-apparent and potentially invisible disabilities. And how we're thinking about that systemic change. It has to be all disabled people. It has to be people with intellectual disabilities. It has to be through a lens of intersectionality. And I think the Paralympics, our mission should be, when we think about more than sport, leaving absolutely no one behind.
Thanks, Sinead. That's fantastic. I'm going to come over to you, Christophe. So I'd like to ask you, what is the role and the potential of business in driving your approaches? Leading on a little bit from what we just heard from Sinead.
Yeah, as you can imagine, the disability, the assistive technology is very far from the helpless business. So in terms of direct business benefit from this kind of initiative, I don't think it's really the goal of all that. What is really interesting in the thing that we put in place, Airbus Humanity Lab, is that thanks to this kind of initiative, in fact, it's a HR topic. In fact, you engage people. People are happy to contribute to this kind of thing. They find some meaning that sometimes they could not see in their company. Because you work on an aircraft, you work on a tiny piece of the aircraft, and you don't see your benefit to the overall aircraft at the end, and you lose your sometimes your engagement. And this kind of project where we are doing, we are using our skills in order to make something positive for another human being, and you see the result on this human being, you understand plenty of stuff that will be very useful in your daily job. There are some people that work as a volunteer for some kind of project with us, and they discover some capability that they could not see before, because they were fully motivated by the thing. So for me, pushing industry to work for the humanity is an investment that the company could do in order to bring meaning inside of our company, and at the same time make an advancement for the people all around the world. It can be, we talk about disability, but we have some project around the environment with the lab, where we provide electricity to countries to houses where there is no electricity, all kind of stuff. The company that we have tremendous power, in fact, in terms of people, in terms of means, in terms of knowledge, technology, and I'm sure it's utilized. And what I would like to show is that this volunteering approach is working. We are delivering many things. We deliver a prosthetic leg made of carbon fiber that is used for the fuselage of the aircraft. It's the waste of the production. When you cut the composite, you have some part that you cannot use on another aircraft, and instead of putting it away, we use it to make some prosthetic. So that's the kind of thing we could do, and if there are some companies that still this idea, I will be very happy to see that. So that's the concept. It's not directly linked to the business. There are some people when I do some presentation that ask me, where are you making some money? We are not making any money with that. The people that work on that are not paid with money, they are paid with emotion. And that's a transaction that is quite very important in our life. And this is the kind of thing that I support. There is not everything is driven by business. All this initiative give me trust in the human being, and to see all these people that spend weekends sometimes working on this kind of stuff without expecting anything in return. That make my day every day, and I'm very very proud to work on this kind of thing and to see the benefit that we have with the technology that we are creating, and also the benefit that we have on the life of people that contribute to that. So that's what I would like to thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Cara. So I'd like to ask you, Cara, about so what is the potential for decision makers to accelerate change, and what is missing?
So I have a question. I recently joined GDI Hub, as I mentioned, in May. And the year before that, I was a White House political appointee serving in the U.S. Department of State as a senior advisor on international disability rights. And the opportunity that something like the Games has is to thrive with what I call disability diplomacy. In order to even just to host the Games, we have to have conversations about accessibility, inclusion, and where does that need to exist? Well, everywhere. Transportation, tourism, in inclusive education, in employment. We have Keela Cat-Wells here from Making Space, who's doing amazing work on this. And we have representatives from the city of LA as well who are going to be looking at this. And so what it does is that it opens up this opportunity to raise awareness, not only about the issues that persons with disabilities are facing, but how does something like universal design, for example, actually make life better for everyone? It helps us identify the gaps, and we might have a policy, we might have a law, but do we actually have an appropriate program? Do we have sufficient funding? And it asks and it begs the very important question, were these policies and programs and budgets not just designed for persons with disabilities, but with us in leadership positions? So we get to have really important conversations about what are the gaps, what are more innovative and exciting ways of making the world more inclusive and equal and representative for everyone. And I think that this is really exciting. We can do this at a school level, we can do this at a municipal level, we can do it in rural and urban areas. It really is something like the Paralympics can inspire us to have these conversations in every country in the world. And so when I think about the impact of this, it goes so much farther than just being an inspiration to young people who have a disability, who might not see a future for themselves. It does so much more than building incredible pride, not only among the disability community, but our allies. But it offers those opportunities for systematic change. And those are the things that I think is most exciting to see as we see the progress every 4 years after every 4 years of how do we make sure that every Paralympic and Olympic Games are inclusive, accessible, and representative for all.
Thank you, Karen. So I am conscious of time, but it is rare to have a panel of this quality. So I think I'll maybe allow one, perhaps two questions from the audience. So if you are able to, if you raise a hand or make yourself otherwise known to us, I'll allow one or two questions to one of our panel. And we have roving microphones, I think, or I can give you the microphone.
They're coming.
Okay. Just here.
Thank you very much, everyone. My name is Stan. I'm a male. I work for Kiev Vision. We retrospectively equipped stadiums and venues with headsets that help blind and visually impaired people be able to follow the event. My question to the panel is, you just were speaking about this, there's a challenge of retrospectively, as an afterthought, equipping something to make it accessible. What advice could you give to those who want to make the world more accessible, how to make that how to work with venues and municipalities to make sure this is they think about this from the ground up, and we're not an afterthought, but we're part of the design. Thank you.
Someone like to answer?
I would just say, first and foremost, hire people with disabilities. The first thing an organization has to do is make it a policy, ensure that you have a reasonable accommodation budget, and hire people with disabilities. Because then we're in the room from those initial conversations. We are going to raise awareness about the barriers we face because we live in a world that wasn't built for us. And that's really cliche for anyone who's disabled in the world. How many times do we say that? But I think it's something that we need to remind our allies who are keen. And I thank you for the question of wanting to ensure that we're not missing out on these incredible opportunities to make everything accessible.
I'm going to yes and you. So I fundamentally believe that a budget is a moral document. And I think that there should be line items for accessibility in the budget of every single department. And I think at the before, middle, and end of an event, whoever is in leadership should be questioning how, and if not, why not, those line items aren't being spent. But it should also be part of the procurement process. So if you're hiring a lighting designer, what is their level of understanding around those who are neurodivergent or those who have epilepsy at events? But also making sure that in terms of events, you're building out the various different solutions that are needed. So like that, an assisted text solution for those who are blind or low vision. But sign language interpreters, making sure that you're modeling best practice, having deaf interpreters, at least 2 languages depending on the venue, thinking about captions. But then the piece that is often missed, that is actually the least expensive, is about the communications. Often we assume that people will find out about the access by themselves. So you have to explicitly and overly communicate to people the symbols that exist around disability. I mean, I have never walked up a ramp with a red carpet before. And if that doesn't exist forevermore, I think we should have a word with the Prime Minister. So I think that, but these are symbols. In the same way that at the very beginning, Ian signposted the bathroom. We make too many assumptions. So we'll say that the entrance is step-free, but how long of a walk in meters and centimeters is it from the taxi drop-off into the venue? Because for somebody with MS, for example, that is transformative in whether or not they can be here independently. So it's about not making assumptions, because access means different things to different people. But I believe that we should also be measuring the return on investment. So after you do your line item in your budgets, then calculating what was the value of that. That will make sure that the budgets increase year on year.
Thank you. Okay, I am going to do some closing remarks and some thanks as well. It's been an incredible evening for certainly for all of us. Just in terms of very short closing remarks, I think what I've heard from the panel and from the discussion is the need for ambition. To Sinead's point about going beyond that 6%, be ambitious, and that's really important. I think be inspired, but be ambitious. Push the envelope in everything that you do. It's so important. We also heard about the global context and access to AT. So think about where you're working and the work that you're doing. Think about that local context and the impact it will have on local people. Speak to local people. They will tell you what they need and what's working and what's not working. So the context is really important. And then funding and investment. So this is something that we're working on right now. We're working on an impact investment fund and the need for investment, both public and private, into, in this case, assistive technology. It's so important, so needed to be catalytic in the disability sector. So if you're interested to find out a little bit more about that fund that we're developing, come and speak to me or Cara or one of the team afterwards. Finally then, from me, is really just to say we have showcases around this evening. So during the networking, please do go and speak to our colleagues and friends and partners who are showcasing here tonight. Very quickly, we have Koala, we have Hope Tech Plus, Tilting the Lens, Give Vision, WASI, Go Assistive Tech, the Parasport Against Stigma, and the European Space Agency. So please do go and speak to them at the tables that are around the residents. Please do that. Finally, from me, and just to say huge thanks to the panel. We massively appreciate your time in coming. It's been incredible to hear from you. Also, just to say that this reception this evening has been supported by the GREAT campaign, so massive thanks to the GREAT campaign and colleagues there. Also thank you to GDI Hub's UK funded 80-20-30 programme, so the FCBO colleagues, thank you. And finally, just to say to the residents and the residents team, Greg, Victoria and team, it's been an absolute delight working with you from start to finish. Ambassador, thank you for having us. It's such an incredible venue, and to be part of this is incredible. Minister, thank you for coming and speaking tonight. Enjoy yourselves, network, speak to each other, speak to us. Have a great night.
Who in your team do I talk to about the 18?